So Agnès Varda's second film, Cléo From 5 to 7.
Made in the 60s?
1961.
In Paris.
In Paris, yes.
Mm-hmm. Featuring French people, I assume. Because they were all speaking French.
Yes.
It's American cinematic beauty from my American prejudice. It's like, oh, European movies, like everyone looks really European. If they're just archetypally beautiful, my subconscious bias is that's an American thing.
Oh.
Cleo looked American to me.
That's interesting.
It's because I'm used to the Hollywood dime.
Yes.
As a archetype.
Totally. And in Varda's other movies, her characters don't look like that. This is very much, it shows a star in the classic sense, and yeah. And that's one role cinema plays and is meant to play, I think, is to showcase the highest instances of physical beauty that this generation has to offer. And that's not... if it's displayed, it's not polite to make a point of it in today's movies. That this is a strikingly beautiful person. Yeah, almost just pretend that these are regular people, even though we're picking the most beautiful people. Yeah. This was the opposite of that. You had all these shots of her being the tallest woman on the street, clearly shining, and all these people in work clothes around her looking so normal. Yeah. Today you even have a preference oftentimes for protagonists with flaws, physical flaws. Yeah. People are cast sometimes now because they're a little bit ugly. Yeah. For the obvious ideological reasons. But David Lynch still casts for beauty. The David Lynch girl. Yeah, right. Is the most beautiful girl he can find in LA. Yeah. But I think there's also there's the way that LA has taken that too far, where everyone is trying to be that image of beauty that then kind of pushes down the rawness of their being. And yeah, I think that can be really unappealing. You want beauty, but also you want this sense of the real form of it, really embodied. Yeah. How many times have you seen this movie now? 4 times. This is my 4th. Wow. I love this movie. Anything new from this latest viewing? I think I felt most aware of that the moment when she really shines, because the whole movie is about her, but the moment that you love her is when she's singing with her band. And yeah, even though I've loved this movie, I actually never really liked her character much. But watching that moment, I saw, oh, I don't just really like her band members. This is where her goodness is. And this is where she's heroic, you know? And yeah, that was new. Yeah, that was a great, that was cool to see a band
working together.
Yeah.
And have everyone be like very good in their roles in the band.
Yeah.
And supporting each other, trying to make things together.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I just liked the moment at the end where she was happy for a moment.
Yeah.
I thought she was the most heroic then, when she was, when the wait was finally over.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still like, she was happy and content finally at getting the news that she had cancer.
Yeah.
That was what like put her anxieties to rest finally. And that's a tragedy to me. And that's like, that is the existential security that people often yearn for. Like, and that's one of the failings of Western medicine, is people would rather be diagnosed with something concrete than to deal with the uncertainty of reality.
Yeah.
And so they try and find symptoms that match some established illness so that a voice of authority can definitively say, you have A, B illness.
Yeah.
And they're like, yes, I'm somewhere now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think the positive way of reading that scene is that now she can actually confront something real. And she needs the diagnosis in order to do that. But people don't necessarily need that. At the beginning of the film, the tarot card death actually comes up. She could just decide, okay, this whole day is about me accepting death as like a force.
Yeah.
And just go there from the beginning.
Yeah. It's and it does do that anyway on her. It is quite conscious in her mind, and that is the force that is framing things.
Yeah.
The chapter headings are doing it for the audience, but the specter of death in her mind is what's doing that in her own psyche.
Yeah.
Of setting these really potent frames on every successive moment of those 2 hours that are being framed of her life. Excuse me. And it's another like unwitting like aspect of the medium of cinema, like Dead Man. Like at the end of the movie, the character dies. As far as our psyche is concerned, being hypnotized into another world. Like 2 hours later, the hypnosis is over, the spell is broken, and this character is gone.
Yeah.
And death is a poetic way of expressing that. Like, you're starting a journey with this character, and in 2 hours, your day is going to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
That character will have disappeared.
Yeah, I like the way that this film begins with the tarot cards. Each card like lays out each chapter of the film in a way, and it tells you exactly what's going to happen.
Yes, in a really fun, original way.
Yeah. And even like what I said about when she's performing with her band, that's when you really see her. That card comes after like the card that represents the man in her life. It does it really nicely. And in a way that's introducing archetypes into your psychology before you ever see her. Like you're introduced to the spirit of the thing.
Yeah.
And the dream emerges from that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that happens a lot in
that is a cinematic tool to give you subliminal messaging in the introduction. Like in the introduction of a symphony, every theme of the musical journey is introduced to you, like bam, 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 ta-da, intro over.
Yeah.
And you just got like the entire thing.
Yeah.
In like microcosm.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the rest of the story is like spelling out just everything that happened in the first 5 minutes.
That's cool. Yeah.
So that like happens a lot in film, and I think it's a really valuable tool. Like that's what happens in Oates and I's album Hells. That's what the first track does for Hells.
Okay.
It shows you the whole journey in the language of what we were capable of expressing in that first era of the band. We wrote out the whole arc of Hells in one song, but like unconsciously or subconsciously.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
And it's in color, and then the tarot reading, it doesn't jump into black and white till the tarot reading is over. And
actually, it's their hands are in color, the cards are in color, and then it does shoot to their faces, and those are in black and white, and then it goes back to the cards, those are in color. And then the narrative begins, and that's all in black and white.
Yeah, so having it in color there is like showing you the hyper-density of information.
Yeah.
Like, this is hyper-dense information. This is the whole movie condensed into one card and another card and another card.
Yeah.
So it's in color.
Yeah.
And then it's in black and white to show you a more like spaced out, slower moving, just one piece at a time, not like multiple pieces all stacked on each other.
Right.
The way an archetypal image is. But it was very good film. It was very good. And there's swirls of chaos for about 90 minutes straight.
Yeah.
But I felt very like pushed around by all the different forces of a bustling city.
Yeah.
And all the different conflicting like sweeps of mood that went through Cleo. But like the import of every moment was very clear. She was like, yeah, she was painting with chaos. She was painting with the city.
Yeah.
She was painting with sweeps of traffic.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's something that I love about
Agnès Varda,
Yes, that's
not,
right.
not Cleo, the
Not
director.
Cleo. Yeah. Yeah, that's something I love about Varda. Very beautiful crafting portraits of a place and the spirit of a place.
And the cuts are so decisive. Like, the cuts were like violent.
Yeah.
These like violent gestures.
Yeah.
Like the cuts were so quick.
Yeah.
And like the punctuations were so fucking clear.
Yeah.
Like, pay attention right fucking now. Right fucking now.
Yeah.
Now look at this. Now look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you think of like a black and white movie with subtitles and you don't speak the language, there's kind of this feeling of like, oh. And this is just not that. Like, that's what I was so excited about the first time I watched it. I think this isn't the first Agnès Varda movie that I saw, but it's one of the first. And I was just really surprised by the real excitement of it.
Yeah.
from moment to moment. Like,
yeah, it's gripping.
yeah.
It's gripping. Like it's that thing where if you're a kid and you watch it, you just go, nothing fucking happened. That movie was terrible. Nothing happened. And yeah, to someone who's older,
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know if being older is required, but certainly I wouldn't have been able to sit through that movie when I was a kid. And because I couldn't like see and identify with what was happening, which was very gripping, very relatable,
Yeah.
very powerful archetypes and images and personalities
Yeah.
colliding with each other and swirling around each other
Totally.
and finding all these poises of attitudes against each other, and
Yeah.
a poetry of minutia
Yes.
that was very spontaneous, but obviously like completely planned and orchestrated
Yeah.
by Agnès Varda.
I have created a fan. Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
Was I like satisfied with the story? I guess it was very slice of life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely the spirit of it too. As you said, it's like much more in the realm of the journalistic than the romantic. Yeah, I guess that's what leads me to think of all the different characters as aspects of her psychology. Yeah, I just want to start criticizing these different characters. You like Anjali, the maid character?
Yeah.
And I don't like her. I like really, what does she say? Her like inner monologue is her and her hysterics. She's like a child. She has to be taken care of.
Yeah.
And there's a classic dynamic going on there of like the beautiful, fragile, starlet kind of woman, and then the like less beautiful, kind of matronly woman that's like wants to be around the weak. They feed off each other. Like she can be weak because someone else is being strong for her, and she can feel really good about being strong because she's put herself next to just this, like, it's this like candle in the wind kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's even like Cleo's hysterics attract like maybe the owner of the cafe, and he comes over and gives them free coffee. And this is an excuse for Anjali to tell a story about her village.
Yeah.
And she so this is what she gets from being like
Well,
a
she
companion.
gets male attention.
Yeah.
Like by
Proxy.
By proxy.
Yeah.
I liked her just because she's a really good actress.
Oh, yes. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone was that scene in particular in the cafe, everyone was acting really well.
Yeah.
And it was just so clearly and naturally their characters. Mm-hmm. With face and gesture and attitude and being their characters to the hilt. There was no like modern movies, like it's unclear for entire scenes at a time who these people are supposed to be,
Yes.
what they're doing, and what they care about, and how they feel, and how you're supposed to feel in the moment.
Right.
Like for whole scenes, for whole acts at a time, it's this fuzzy, foggy, fucking like stupor of like mush.
Yeah.
and they just fill it with cliches and explosions and maybe virtue signaling to liberals to like put in the place of something actually happening.
Yeah.
But
everyone gets to be kind of a hero for a moment.
But compared to this, like, is completely clear. Every single fucking character was a very clear fucking person.
Yeah.
It was a black and white film. They were all so colorful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
They were such living personalities.
Yeah, I love her bandmates so much. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they come in and they bring so much personality, and you feel completely like this is where the magic is. This is where these people can match her, you know? Mm-hmm. Like her drama and her like self-pityingness, they can just like play along and yeah,
they're definitely at her level.
Yeah.
And her pop stardom is like all three of them are like really, really high level artists.
Right.
And her apartment was obviously super fucking cool.
Yeah, her apartment is great. Yeah. Yeah, I love, so she goes from being in like black and white, like polka dot dress to being in this like angel's robe with these feathers that move like in this really dramatic way. And
those are her like PJs.
Yeah, it's like house clothes, you know. And it's like the most dramatic thing she wears in the whole film, which is like so lovely. It's like her home is her stage, you know, more than anything else. And then after her lover comes to see her, she like is complaining to her maid, and she goes and sits on a swing feeling sorry for herself, and she's on this swing in this like crazy dramatic feather robe event, and as she's swinging, the angel wings on the wall behind her look like her wings, and the just whiteness of the whole space and her blonde, like platinum blonde hair, everything is so pointedly ethereal. And I was thinking about how, there's this desire, this very like feminine desire to be very ethereal, but she's also so afraid of dying. And she's both taking solace in like her beauty. She walks through the hat shop or something, and she's like, as long as I am beautiful, I am more alive than everyone else. But she's also like constantly like looking in the mirror like, oh no, like are there signs of death on my face? It's a really funny contradiction there.
Well, it's a pretty common female trait to associate like their beauty with their value.
Yeah.
But then they associate their beauty with their youth. And so every single moment is this hourglass of their life and their beauty and their value as a fucking soul just like drifting away from them. So it's this neurotic state of mind where they cannot concentrate on anything, on any like timelessness that might arise out of being at peace, because they need to like grab something that's like always fleeting.
So that's what's so beautiful about the moment that she's walking through the park alone. And I have the sense that a lot of her walking through the town, there's all these shots of people looking at her, and also just her walking past people. And so there's these constant views of basically like her relationship to others and how she sees herself reflected like by them or seen by them. And finally, when she's at the park, she's just performing for herself and no one's around her. And she's just
but
walking
she still
and singing.
performs.
Yeah, but then it's most beautiful because it's completely for herself, you know? And yeah, I love that scene. That's something I didn't quite notice before this viewing too. And yeah, that's a brief moment where she is like timeless. And then that hits again at the very end when she gets the news. And then she tells Antoine that they have all the time. And
yeah, she grasps his hand and asks what they're going to do next.
yeah, right.
And Antoine is like, "Oh shit, what? I'm not chasing anymore.
Yeah,
Like now I have her.
right.
Like it was all like a game,
Yeah,
but now it's like I won the game.
yeah.
Now what do we do?" Is a challenge there. Like now suddenly she's there like as a person
Yeah,
to challenge him
right.
and see if there's anything behind his eyes, behind his pretty words.
Right. Yeah.
And then a real moment happens. Is passingly thinking of before sunset or before sunrise, because it's a French chick, a beautiful French chick,
Yeah, European city.
and a great scene on a bus,
Yeah.
and talking with each other.
Yeah.
But it's much more like about the director is much more fascinated with the conversations in Before Sunrise.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
in this bus scene and Antoine and Cleo's the chemistry, it's much more about the vibes.
Yeah. I feel every time disappointed by their dialogue. And it's interesting because like Varda also does a lot of documentary style things, and her poetic narration of everything that she's documenting is so beautiful. But at least in this movie, she gives her characters like just very bland dialogue a lot of the time. And
well, nothing can penetrate Cleo's narcissism. Like no subject of conversation is allowed to go deeper. Like
right.
it can't even like
Yeah, because all he does basically is just like compliment her beauty in different ways.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he knows that he can't do anything real with the conversation except like add adornments to the trip she's on in a pleasing way. Like anyone who even like accidentally says something that might trigger her, she just like flies off into a fit of fury.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
So like none of the conversations can like do more than like lightly touch on anything.
Yeah.
Like she like goes on the drive with what's her name?
Irma, I think.
Irma?
I think so.
Really? No. The model?
Yeah.
Like
I think so.
IRMA? That doesn't feel right.
Doesn't? Okay. I might be wrong.
Hot brunette
Yeah.
pianist, I think.
Okay.
With an old beat up car and like kind of making it on her own.
Yeah.
Very much like
Love her.
much more like grounded, self-fulfilled woman.
Yeah.
And she's got like all the beauty of Cleo,
Right.
but also this like age
Yeah.
that's in her face and in her expression.
Yeah.
This like worldly wisdom
Right.
to her.
Yeah. So I think the first woman we see driving is the female taxi driver, and Cleo, what does she call her? She calls her like repulsive?
Something like that.
Yeah, later on, like she says that about her. And then when she meets her friend who's like just learned to drive, they're a little more in it together. And I think that character kind of brings together the more raw, like can-do, like hardworking feminine thing, and this like beautiful, not really fragile, but very beautiful.
Just very beautiful.
Yeah.
A dime.
Yeah.
Fucking 10 out of 10 French chick.
And I guess, so she's also a really interesting character for Cleo, because Cleo is super invested in her looks, and yeah, how other people see her. But she's also like really like insecure, uncomfortable with nudity. Like even her experience with her lover isn't intimate. She doesn't tell him anything. And her friend represents the opposite of that, posing nude and then saying like, they're not even looking at me, they're looking at a shape and an idea. And yeah, Cleo's imagines that would be an uncomfortable experience, because she would think that they would see a flaw. But her friend knows that that's not what it's about at all. And
Lynch does this too with his films, of giving this effect to me of like what she's doing, what Varda is doing seems very doable. Like I can see her making it. I can see the director's process of making these moments.
yeah.
And it feels very like communicable or within reach. Like I can do this. Anyone can do this.
Yeah.
Anyone can do this. She's doing the most simple things to communicate things in a very unique way that are immediately understandable and don't cost any money. Like it does not cost any money to have the opening title cards of your movie just be title cards on top of the backs of tarot cards.
Yeah.
And someone places a tarot card and then the title appears on the back of that tarot card.
Yeah.
It's the simplest ideas.
She often does like just walking by with a piece of glass that has the film title written on it or something like that, or the credits on it.
Yeah, it's really inspiring.
Yeah.
And obviously like a monolithic amount of work to make 90 minutes of scenes, but it's not some like lofty like thing of you have to have the right connections and the right resources and a few $1 million.
Right.
You don't, all you need is an idea and follow through.
Yeah.
And a focus and a personal devotion, commitment to your idea and to your set of ideas, and you'll make something unique that hasn't been seen before. And the contrast was so fucking stark to any fucking movie you see today. They're all so bad. So bad.
I know.
And no new ideas.
Yeah.
In like any moment. And no cohesiveness. Nothing is no subject or theme is communicating with anything else. No voice is discernible. Like the director's voice is not discernible at all. It's like could be made by anyone, isn't really made by anyone in particular.
Yeah.
And this was like a clear communication from a person.
Yeah.
Clearly ordering visuals to communicate a story of her own making.
Yeah.
And there's nothing mysterious about it. You could see the artist's hand painting the picture.
Yeah, this is what I love about her. It's very much reminds me of like Virginia Woolf. Like, in a way, it's just a scene of what's happening on the street. Like, it's very much the everyday things that you see, but framed correctly. That person over there that's walking by, like, get the camera on them and catch that line and weave it in to show the poetry of just what's already happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's super inspiring and fills one with the zeal of like making art. It was very good.
Yeah.
It's very good. Like nothing much happened. So like, should much of anything have happened? It was, I guess not.
I mean, yeah, I want to talk about that question of this is more like a journalistic piece. How would you, just for the thought experiment, how would you make it like a romantic kind of story?
She could sing the same song in the park that she sings with her band, but without her sunglasses on. As we see her girlfriend's lover show them the short film he just finished.
Yeah.
And in the short film, all the protagonist sees is death, but it turns out he just had sunglasses on.
Yeah.
And so he takes them off and sees all of the events happening again and is able to intervene and change the tragedy into what he wants it to be because he can see clearly.
Yeah.
And he just mistakes all the cues of reality for omens of death because he had sunglasses on.
Yeah.
So she freaks out when she sings the band's new song because it's all about death. And it's this funeral dirge as far as she's concerned.
Yeah.
So when she's in the park and more released from her woes, or when she's in the hospital hospital grounds and feeling good again, we could get a reprise of that musical arrangement, but in a major key instead of a minor key.
Oh, that's cool.
And she like does the whole number over again.
Yeah.
But as like a sense of adventure and the fortune teller saying, "Oh, this card doesn't necessarily mean death.
She gets to make that true.
This is a complete transformation of yourself." And so she could use her singer's abilities at the end to retell the story of her diagnosis.
Yeah, the Hanged Man, who represents change, the tarot card, can be read as Antoine, and there's this idea that like one way of reading it is that, okay, they've come together, they're both about to die and like encounter tragedy.
Because he's going off to the war again.
Yes. But they're gonna like do that together. But you could also read it in that other way, that like through their encounter with each other, they're both going to be transformed and like that could mean just that her neurotic nature and her like narcissism, fear of death, vanity, and like superstitious nature will change, and she'll become like much more centered in herself. That's like a very hopeful way of reading it.
Yeah. And is that a critique? Is that a valid critique of Varda? Is that a failing of her artist's ability? That she couldn't tell a romantic tale, could only tell a journalistic tale?
I think it was kind of appropriate for her time. Like, I think that now we need romanticism more than she did then.
Is not Europe falling 6 feet under as we speak? And is not the inaction of the artists of the 60s in Europe
Responsible?
like helping to have made this inability to respond to apocalypse in 2020 in a responsible and vital way? Like it's very European to like just frame this thing and then not give it any heroic journey. And it's a very American thing to like, no, this must be a triumph. This must like have a happy ending.
Okay, but I think that why I like Varda so much is that she does something that I never see in American films, which is making like just the everyday street life with like trying to, you know, cross the street with traffic coming on and like just people walking past each other awkwardly and all of those little things. She makes that poetic and that's something that's missing.
She's successfully capturing the magic of existence.
Yeah.
And so she is fulfilling the romantic purpose of cinema itself.
Yes.
The cinema is meant to show us God in this moment.
Yeah.
And God is here.
Right.
But it takes an artist's frame, framing here.
Yeah.
To make us understand that God is here.
That's right,
And we are all these dancers in a beautiful tableau of existence. Yeah. But but still the storyteller must be there.
Yeah.
And if this is a frame of God, then God's will must be manifest to the finish line.
Right.
Not just to when it trails off.
Yeah. So she's a better director than a storyteller. That's true. She has another film that I love, Daguerreotypes. She lived on the Rue Daguerre in Paris. And then daguerreotype is an old kind of portrait. So it's this pun on making a portrait of the people that live on her street. Yeah. And the star of that film is this old woman who is is in some kind of psychosis, and always at around sunset she's trying to wander out of the shop and her husband is trying to keep her in, and they're both so old and they're selling like these old gift shop items that were like special 50 years ago, but now they're all just, the packaging is covered in dust and and she's just always elsewhere, and she's always like wandering off, and her eyes are far away, and Varda just makes you look at her. And there's like a real tragic beauty to that woman and their love, but that's all. Like, there is no heroic end to that. It's just them closing up shop and this is it.
Yeah.
And yeah, like Varda is the hero because she's the one making everything art. She's not shy about that, and she starts becoming very like focused on herself in her later documentaries, and that's interesting.
In that sense that it is journalism and not romanticism, of romanticism as defined as portraying what should exist, what should happen. If this is a frame of art, then every single thing there is, as far as the art piece is concerned, is the whole of the universe and the direction that the universe is going. And if it's art, that means it's your chance to decide what direction the universe goes.
Right.
And so to not do anything with that is to default on the powers of God. And so in that sense, the kid in me who wouldn't be able to stand watching this, because nothing fucking happened.
Yeah.
He's right.
Yeah.
Literally nothing happened.
Yeah.
A woman made a fucking beautiful, flawless movie.
Yeah.
That happened.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's amazing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's there. Cleo was not like saved.
So I think
She didn't like save herself.
Yeah, I think like Cleo's character brings up all these questions of like what is femininity? What is our relationship to beauty? What is our relationship to the other? When she meets Antoine, there's that question of like, do you give yourself to love or do you hold back? And like, are you comfortable with nudity? Are you comfortable with revealing this self? Are you comfortable like diving into things? And she's always like neurotically running away from the fear of death thing. So I guess it would be satisfying to see her become more like that friend that's free and self-reliant, and to be genuinely intimate with someone.
And gives herself to the moment.
Yeah.
She gives herself to the artists that are using her as a model.
Yeah.
And she's enriched by doing it.
Yeah.
And she gives herself to her lover.
Right.
And their relationship is obviously fruitful.
Yeah.
And bountiful.
Yeah.
And nothing is lost. That's the fear that Antoine is saying all the girls around him have, is that they'll lose something if they really give fully to the love that they feel.
Yeah.
And so it could have used a few, like, could have seen what happened once she like had her head change at the end there. Like, well, let's re-encounter some of these things she ran away from and see what her new zeitgeist does with these things.
Yeah, there's right before we watched this, I was watching the short film she makes about like kind of a group of women making certain feminist complaints, and the way it ends is the women tell a group of men, it's kind of this conversation between them, they say like, you need to change, you have to behave differently toward us. And the men say, okay, we will change, but this means love has to change. And the women say, okay. And that's the end of the film. But it would be so wonderful to illustrate what that looks like, and to illustrate like the way that a woman who feels that her femininity is fragile and her beauty is fragile starts to feel unshakable, and what the masculine feminine dynamic looks like when that happens. I think Varda, as much as I love her, she doesn't answer that problem for me, because her image becomes very silly as she gets older. She like dyes her hair red and she has a bowl cut, and then she grows it out and she has like a white top of her roots that are growing out with the red stripe. And she just looks so absurd, and like in a way I love it because it's like just this playful thing and you have to love it. And then also in a way it's like, yeah, it's just rebellion against like pressure to be a specific image, but she's not.
It's negation without a positive enunciation of something else.
Yeah.
Something better.
Yeah.
Oh, so we watched Doctor No
We did.
before this.
Last time, yeah.
Was it to masculinity? We
We ask you.
a little bit. It was a little bit masculinity.
A certain
And
kind of masculinity.
so now this was your response to ask, is this femininity?
It's pronounced femininity.
Oh, so but the femininity.
It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
It's got ninny in
Oh
it.
God. Yeah.
So did you have any new thoughts about femininity? Watching this for a fourth time?
God, you hope so, right? I think I've said it already in this podcast, but it's just is a very vivid picture to me of this fragile kind of femininity, which like I associate with like drag. Even if you are a woman, like feeling like you have to wear makeup, you have to like perform it, and if you're not looking a certain way or something, like, or if you're aging, like it's gone, and yeah, I certainly would like to have a new thought about that, but
Well, it's feminine to portray what is with the lover archetype, like to not just portray what is, to love what is.
yeah,
And everything is so well fucking made. All the images are so well framed because she loves this city.
Yeah,
she
that's
loves
right.
these characters.
Yeah.
She loves these moments that these characters are having with each
Right.
other. And that's feminine.
yeah,
And the critique that I have to give to it of like taking the heroine's journey to the finish line is to give more masculinity to it. The ultimate union is of an integrated being
yeah,
that has if it's a feminine forward piece, it needs to be supported by a masculine like willingness to reach the finish line,
yeah,
to more heroically say that, like, behold,
yeah.
woman.
So I think the way that happens in the narrative is with Antoine, but like he's not. He just like admires her and is kind of there with her, and that's good. But he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't like. He's just with her and he like holds her through it or something. But like, I don't know. He's not exactly like the agent of change. Is he? Maybe he is.
Just time passing is the agent of change. just getting to the preordained appointment of finding out what the diagnosis is.
Right.
That's all it is. It's purely just chance. It's just the tarot card she happened to draw
Right.
is all Antoine is. I have a great film though. It's still tragic. It's not a
It's winter. We gotta do it.
it's not a good ending. But you said you like spouted forth some desire. There was no context. You just like spoke into the silence of like, I want a modern film to be this and this and this. And I don't even remember what you said. Do you remember what you said?
Like here?
At my house. You were like, I want a modern film. I want it to be new and I want it to be original and like told in its own voice. Or like, you said some like statement like that.
Yeah. New, like masterfully done, and romantic. I think I said romantic.
Okay, it's not romantic. But I got a good one.
Okay.
I got a good
Cool.
one. And it's a fun mirror of this
Yeah.
because the narcissist is male
Okay.
and it's male narcissism.
I can't wait.
So it is like one notch more romantic than
Yeah.
this film because his narcissism melts so that he can more accurately face reality. And he, like his ego contrivance of himself breaks down so that he can responsibly face the moment. And,
Cool.
and like he's like pretending to be the leader for the entire film, and then by the end of the film has to actually become the leader. And it goes from like him talking and never shutting up to him like talking very, very little is his journey from like a narcissist to a warrior and a leader. And it's new and it's made with like almost no money.
Cool.
And it's very unique. Yeah. So we'll watch that and we'll talk about it in front of people.
Yeah. Narcissism.
Yeah, you worry about it sometimes out loud. You use the word solipsism.
The myth of Narcissus and Echo is like a Narcissus falls in love with himself, Echo falls in love with him, and they're this like perfect couple because whatever he says, all that she can do is say exactly what he said back to him. And so that's I guess that is like the solipsist fear that I'm only encountering the world as I see it. I'm not receiving it. I'm just encountering myself all the time. Or not the solipsist fear, but my fear of solipsism.
Yeah.
But I used to be the opposite, so
What do you mean?
I used to
What
be
was
just
the
Echo,
opposite?
you know.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that was my fear before. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like that she becomes Florence when she meets Antoine.
Her true name is revealed.
Yeah, that's nice. And I was also just thinking about the way that it takes place on the longest day of the year, and she's like, oh God, it does feel like the longest day. But I think the significance of that is the way that it's much like her relationship to her beauty. Like in the longest day of the year, right when summer hits, is when the days start getting shorter and you are looking at the winter that is coming, you're looking toward a death. Yeah, it would be good to present a more fleshed out image of the remedy to that mindset.